I was putting together this message this morning, and I got excited because it went from being a message to being a mandate. And I feel like there are some people here this morning. You have been wondering why you haven't reached your next level. You've been wondering why you haven't reached the next promotion in your life. You wondered why you have lost out on relationships. I want to pose the question to you. You might have missed out and been bypassed by some blessings because you have lost the art of honor. And that is the title of my message this morning. I want to talk to you about the lost art of honor. You see, we are currently living in a society where we have stopped treating people and principles with the reverence in which they deserve. We have gotten to a place where honor has been something in which has become optional instead of something that we should live by on a day-to-day. You know, honor is not something in which is just missing in our lives as far as being a cultural trend. No, this is a spiritual problem. This is an issue in which honor has to be no longer ignored. We have to be able to take honor serious, because if you're not going to take honor serious, then you're going to reach a place where there is consequences. And I believe that this happens with us. And it reminds me of a time a few weeks ago where my kids, they actually they played a prank on me. Yeah, they called it a TikTok challenge. I'm going to tell y'all right now, TikTok going to get some people hurt. TikTok going to get some people hurt. They played this prank on me. Let me tell you what they did to me. They called me downstairs, and it was around dinner time, and I came downstairs, and my wife, she was cooking. And she was at the stove cooking, and my wife and my son, they were talking, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, my son says, "Shut up, Mom." Look, y'all see? I did the same thing. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought to myself, oh, he done lost his mind. He has lost his entire mind. I said, don't talk to your mother like this. Don't talk to your mother like that, actually. And he was just smiling, he kept going on. And I'm like, oh, he don't think I'm gonna do something. And then I looked over to my wife because I was looking for the okay. You know, I was looking like, can I do it? And actually, I was kind of concerned with him at the same time because I knew she was cooking and I knew she had a knife near her. And so I didn't want to get into the crossfires of what could have happened. But my wife, she never turned around. So I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe she didn't hear him, but I did. And so I have to teach my son a lesson. And the only way that I can make sure that he never does this again, well, he's gonna have to take his last few breaths. And as I was thinking in my head, I was thinking, man, son, I really liked you. I did. I mean, it's been a good 13 years. Man, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to do this. And right when I was about to kind of launch in there, his little brother noticed. He said, Dad, hey, Dad, it's a joke. It's a TikTok challenge, and Mom's in on it too. And my wife just turned around and grinned and smiled. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't think it was funny. And I said it over and over again, I don't think that this is funny. And I still made my son apologize. And yeah, I didn't even eat. I think I told him that my head was hurt, my blood pressure was up. I just went and laid down. Now, I know that that was a joke, and they were playing with me, but we all know that kind of disrespect happens often in the world that we live in today. We see those kind of things take place. And the problem is that we have gotten to a place where we live in a culture of dishonor. We've been raised on sarcasm instead of reverence. We've been raised to cancel instead of cover. We've gotten to a place where disrespect is now content. And you will get people that will roast you before they respect you. You see, the place that we have gotten to is not that we lack honor. I feel that we've gotten to a place where we've completely forgotten what honor even looks like. And the Bible tells us in 1 Peter 2:17, it says, honor all people, love the family of believers, fear God, honor the king. That biblical word for honor, it's kavod. It means to add value or worth to something, to add weight to something. In other words, it's saying that you must intentionally add worth or weight to somebody or to something. It tells me that honor is not something that is earned. Honor is something that is given. And we have to be able to give it. You see, and we have reached a place where honor has become a lost art form. It reminds me, I came across this story about a man. He was a businessman in the early 1900s. His name was Christian Nikolai Musted. Yeah. And Mr. Musted, he had purchased a painting. He had purchased a Vincent van Gogh painting. And he was proud of this painting. He quickly hung it up on his wall, and anytime somebody came by his house, he was quick to point out his painting and show everybody, look what I got. And then one day he had a friend, an ambassador friend, who was a French ambassador who came by, and he calmly told his buddy, Mr. Musted, he said, you know, I'm sorry to tell you this, but that's not a Van Gogh painting. And from that point on, Mr. Musted was totally embarrassed. I mean, he quickly took that Van Gogh off the wall, and it was Van Gogh. He had felt like he had got Van Gogh. And he threw that Van Gogh up into the attic, and it sat there. And that Van Gogh painting sat there until he died. And after he passed away, his family came in, and his family did what most people do when relatives pass. They start selling off his stuff. And they started selling the stuff off, and they got to this painting in the attic. And when they got to this painting, they wanted to see if it was real. Now, they had heard throughout the years that this was a fake knockoff. But since there was a Van Gogh museum not that far from them, they decided to take it to the Van Gogh Museum. And when they took it to the Van Gogh Museum, they did some research on it, and they had an issue initially because this Van Gogh, it did not have his signature on it. So that was a major issue. Then they did a little bit more research, and they compared it to other Van Goghs, and then they started second guessing because it kind of looked like, but they weren't sure. And then there was a major breakthrough that took place. You found a letter that was written by Mr. Van Gogh himself to his brother, and it described about a painting that he was working on. And in the description in the letter, he's describing a sunset taking place over a hillside in a place called Mount Mazur. I worked on that. And this painting, in the description of this letter, it actually lined up exactly in what Mr. Musted had purchased years ago. And so after 100 years, they have finally decided to declare that this painting is no longer considered a knockoff, but it is actually an authentic and original Vincent van Gogh painting. And the value of that painting was over $50 million. Now, I tell you that story for many different reasons, because there's a lot of things that I got out of that story. The first is what you don't understand, you might dishonor. And so often, we've gotten to a place where we don't recognize something. And so because we don't recognize it and we were unfamiliar with it, we might dishonor it. That painting was always a Van Gogh. The truth never changed, but the perception did. And I want to let you know this morning that honor will take the time to look a little bit deeper instead of quickly judging. Because if you quickly judge, you might overlook something that is so valuable. The other thing that I pulled out was what you honor is determined by who you listen to. You see, Mr. Mustad knew that he had purchased something special, but it took one calm communication from one person. And because of this one detail, this one suggestion came his way, Mr. Mustad heard it from what he considered a friend. And because of that, what he thought was was a treasure full of worth, all of a sudden it became worthless to him. And it was all because of one wrong voice. You see, one wrong voice will cause you to bury the wrong thing. One wrong voice will cause you to hide what God meant to be placed on display. One wrong word, and you can end up hiding or devaluing what God meant to bring in your life to be a blessing to you. So I want to tell you this morning that you're going to have to let the doubter's voice go silent and allow the truth to be heard in your life, because one wrong voice can mess a whole lot of things up. The other thing that that just kind of jumped out to me was value covered up is still valuable. That painting sat in an attic for years, and it never lost its worth. That painting wasn't recognized. The people didn't know what they were holding, and so they hid it. And I just want to let you know that just because you're unseen, just because you're not seen by the world, or you might feel like you've lost your value, but you haven't lost your value. I'm here to tell you this morning that some of you are here and you might feel like you've been tucked away. You might feel like you've been covered up. You might feel like you've been labeled no good. But God sent me here this morning to tell you that just because you've been overlooked does not mean that you're undervalued. That God sees you, that he loves you, that he has great plans and purposes for your life, and that he wants to use you, that he sees the value that's in you in spite of what the world doesn't see. Which brings me to the last thing that I noticed about this story is that once honor was restored, then the value was restored. You see, what was once considered a fake, worthless knockoff, once they put the right label on it and honored it as what it truly was, an authentic Van Gogh painting, then the honor shifted. And it went from something that was worthless to something that was priceless. How quick something can shift and change if you put the right label on it. And I'm just here to tell you this morning that some of you might be here this morning, and I want to help you because you might be mistreating. And you might be actually seeing others that are masterpieces and treating them like cheap knockoffs. And if you keep treating people that way, showing dishonor, then your blessings might be blocked. It takes me to a few weeks back. I was at my wife's mother's house. Her name is Big Mama. Even though Big Mama's not big, actually Big Mama is very healthy. She's 87 years old, and she's in the prime of her years. And I just want to take the time out right now to give a shout out to all the Big Mamas, the Gigi's, right, the Nanas, all the grandparents who's gone before us. Can we just honor them for a minute, including all the Papas? I think we should just honor those who have gone before us because that is so important. But Big Mama had asked me if I could go to the basement and get her something out of her storage room. And I was happy to get that for her. And as I went downstairs into that basement, I started to come closer to the door of her storage room. And when I went to the door, I couldn't get the door open. And it was hard for me to open this door, and it wasn't locked. It was just that something was behind it. It was blocking it. And when I continued to push on that door, I was able to kind of slide in behind it. I noticed that some boxes had fell behind it. And so I was able to get into the room. When I was able to do that, I was able to move those boxes. Now, I'm telling you that because I believe that many of you are living that way spiritually, that God is standing at the door of your heart with blessings, but he can't get in because it's blocked by dishonor and disrespect. And if we can just get that mess out of our hearts, then God can come in and his presence can live within. But we got to get rid of it. You see, you might be here this morning and you're wondering if God is even willing, but I'm here to tell you that God is willing. It's just that disrespect is in the way. And if you're here and you're feeling like maybe your blessings are being blocked, or you're feeling like you're spiritually dry, or you're distant from God, I want to pose a question to you. You might not have a faith issue. You might have an honor issue. Because where there is no honor, there is no anointing. And you can see this even in Scripture. I'm going to take you to a story in Mark chapter 6. In Mark chapter 6, Jesus is returning to his own hometown. And it says, Jesus left that part of the country and returned with his disciples to Nazareth, his hometown. The next Sabbath, he began teaching in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. They asked, where did he get all this wisdom from, the power to perform such miracles? Then they scoffed. He's just a carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon. His sisters live here amongst us. They were deeply offended and refused to believe in him. Then Jesus told them, a prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown, amongst his relatives, in his own family. And because of their unbelief, he couldn't do any miracles among them except place his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Now, this story gets me because Jesus didn't return to his own hometown to try to impress them. No, Jesus came back home to do what he always does, to bless, heal, and reveal the kingdom. He will always do that when he shows up. He will bless, heal, and reveal the kingdom of God. And it amazes me because here in Nazareth, these miracles didn't take place. But if you look at the previous chapter, Jesus had returned from a city in which once he arrived there, they were waiting for him. Crowds were excited that he was there. When he walked the streets, there was crowds that surrounded him, and even to the point where there was a woman with an issue of blood. And she reverenced and honored him to the place where all she wanted to do was touch the hem of his garment. And when she did so, she was instantly healed. And Jesus left that miracle and went to a man named Jairus' house. And when he reached Jairus' house, Jairus had a daughter who was on her deathbed. And when the king stepped in, he began to speak life over her. And she got up out of that bed. And what they thought was going to be a funeral, they ended up celebrating as a resurrection. Now Jesus, he leaves this place where he celebrated to his hometown where he's tolerated. And when he gets there, they end up missing out on all those miracles. And the reason for that is because of the dishonor that they show. And so there's a few things that they did to dishonor Jesus that I want to show you so that we don't do the same. The first is that they found him to be too familiar. It says that they scoffed. It said that he's just a carpenter, the son of Mary. That word scoff means to laugh at and to treat unserious or to not treat seriously. That's what it means to scoff. So what they were basically saying was, wait a minute, aren't you the local handyman? Now all of a sudden you just some great worldwide life coach, spiritual leader? Yeah, right, Jesus. And then they go even deeper into disrespect. And this one you guys might have overlooked, but then they go on and say that he's Mary's son. Now, I know that you might not understand this, but in Jewish times, in the Jewish culture, a young man is not identified by his mother, he's identified by his father. So when they say he's Mary's son, they're implementing something much deeper there, because you have to understand that these are the hometown folks. This is his kinfolk. They know him. They know his mama them. They know Mary 9 months BC. They know about her mystery pregnancy. The mystery pregnancy says that Jesus is Mary's baby and Joseph's maybe. I'm putting it out there. Sometimes you got to read the Bible. So in doing so, they are totally dishonoring Jesus. And I don't believe that Jesus was focused on that, but they were focused more on his humanity and not his divinity. And because of that, they missed out on these miracles. And we do that so often because what they saw was somebody who looked like them, who talked like them, who had a job like them, and they figured that he was common like them. And what they didn't understand was that they were talking to the King of Kings, and they treated something special as though it was common. And we do that often. We do that with spouses. We do that with pastors. We even do this with our own church. Can I tell you that I don't treat Pastor Joe lightly? I always call him Pastor Joe. He's Pastor Joe here. He's Pastor Joe in my house. Why? Because I honor the man of God, because he is the spiritual leader who God has placed into my life. So we should honor him. You know, yeah, he's not Joe, my buddy and everything else. He's my man of God. Love you, Pastor Joe. Yeah. And I'm wondering, I'm saying to myself, why is that? Because even Jesus points this out. Jesus says that a prophet is honored everywhere except for in his own hometown, amongst his own people. And I feel like we do this because we recognize that people are flawed. And sometimes we want to be rescued or helped by a hero and not by a flawed human individual. But that's who God uses. And so even Jesus, who was flawless, was still dishonored because of familiarity. And so they became offended by Jesus. It says that they took offense at him. It says that they didn't look at him as though God was using him. They looked at him and they got so offended because of what God was doing in and through him, because of their insecurity and because of their jealousy. They didn't want to receive the vessel that God was using. You see, we often dismiss truth because we don't like the package that God is delivering it in. And so we will end up dishonoring it. But can I tell you that you cannot be petty and powerful at the same time? And you're going to have to get rid of that offense if you want to move in the things of God. If this is what ends up happening to them, their hearts become closed off and disbelief kicks in. And it says that he couldn't do many miracles there. And I don't believe that Jesus was not powerful enough to do many miracles. I believe that he had gotten to the point where he just didn't want to do many miracles. I don't know if you've ever gotten to a place where you're just like, okay, all this doubt and disrespect, I can't. It says that he couldn't. I think he got to the point where he was just like, I can't, I don't want to. I can't do this. How in the world are you going to talk about me, my mama, my sister, and my brother, and then going to ask me to bless you? Yeah, you got some nerves. I don't know if you've ever had anybody who's disrespected you and then asked something from you. They'll talk about your car and then ask you for a ride. They'll talk about your cooking and then ask for seconds. Sitting there eating in front of you. Ooh, this potato salad, it looks funny. It smells funny. I don't know. You should put raisins in it like I do. And That's the way to do it. I don't know. I must be hungry. Give me another scoop. No, I'm not giving you another scoop. I'm not giving you nothing with all your little dishonor. And I feel like we do this to God often. We dishonor God and we don't even know that we're doing it. We dishonor God by trying to treat him like he's a genie, thinking that we can just rub our hands together and ask for 3 blessings. But that's not how it works. It baffles me how people will come into the church and they will talk about the church and they'll forget that the church is actually God's bride, and then later on ask God to bless them. That's not going to happen. You guys just heard me early tell you that even in a prank, I was going to get on my own son thinking that he had dishonored not just his mother, but I felt like he was dishonoring my bride, and that's a problem. You hear what I'm saying? So how in the world are you going to dishonor Jesus' bride and then ask for a blessing? I just want to tell you this morning to be careful in your criticism of the church. The other way that we dishonor God is we doubt him. And it's easy to doubt God, but it's dishonoring to him because basically what you're saying is that you know better than he does. And the enemy uses that ploy. It's the same ploy that he used in the Garden of Eden, because he didn't attack Eve with anything that was by force. All he did was had to get her to discredit God's voice. Did God really say? I'm here to tell you this morning that your spiritual enemy, he doesn't use swords, he uses suggestions. And there might be some voices in which you have discredited. And this morning I want to remind you that there might be some people that you need to go back to. You need to add some weight, some value, some honor to their voice, because you may have silenced the wrong voice in your life. And if that dishonor has caused any kind of breakup in your relationship, if you have had dishonor mess up your relationship, the only way that you can fix that is by bringing honor to them. And so I just want to take these next few moments to help you to rebuild a culture of honor in your life. The first is this: we must honor others with our words. Ephesians 4:29 says, "Let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up as it fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." And all I'm saying here is that we're going to have to speak life. There's no way that you're going to be able to gossip and slander and then call it concern and then think that God don't see that. The proper way of honoring people is that you should be more focused on their potential instead of being focused on all their flaws. And so we can find ourselves talking down on people. Now, I want to encourage you to talk them up, because it's hard to tear down what you're building up. It reminds me of an episode of one of my favorite shows, Undercover Boss. I don't know if you've ever seen Undercover Boss, but man, Undercover Boss, man, they a trip. And in this one particular episode, it was the CEO of Rallies or Checkers, depends on where you live in the country. And in this episode, the CEO of Rallies goes undercover, and here he is working in a local restaurant, trying to find out how things take place at the local level. And then there's a general manager, and this general manager is out of control. Y'all, he's out of order. He's talking bad to the staff. He's disrespectful to customers. And then he has the nerve to start bad-mouthing the corporation and the corporate level to the CEO himself. But he doesn't know that he's talking to the CEO. And after a while, the guy gets enough. The CEO's like, I can't take this no more. And he pulls the general manager outside and he begins to talk to him. And he asks him, hey man, why are you talking to the staff like this? Why are you talking so harshly? And the general manager starts to explain, I have to talk to him like this because if not, they won't understand. So that's why I got to do this. And then the CEO says, I think there's a better way. And then the general manager says, well, how do you know that there's a better way? How long have you been in this industry? And initially, he tells him, not for long. But then the general manager doubles down and says, yeah, I didn't think so. So I think there's some dishes in there that you need to wash. And when you're done with that, take out the trash, because I'm the manager here. Well, after a while, the CEO can't take it, and he says, well, actually, I've been in the restaurant industry for a very long time, over 20 plus years, and I'm not just some new hire. I'm actually the CEO. Well, at that point, the color drained from the manager's face. And he started backtracking. Let me explain this to you. You know how we be playing as a joke. And he tried to play it off. But at that point, it was way too late. He couldn't play it off. And the CEO fired the manager on the spot. Now, I'm telling you that because I'm wondering to myself, how many times has Jesus been undercover with us? Watching how we treat others and how we overlook others and how we disrespect people. And Jesus being undercover, it's not far-fetched. In Hebrews 13:2, it says, don't forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. What? I'll give you another one. Matthew 25, it says, when I was hungry, you fed me. Thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was sick and in prison, you visited me. Then they asked him, Lord, when did we do all these things? And he said, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. Now, if God is saying that if you loved them, you loved me, he'll also say that when you gossiped about them, you gossiped about me. You see, he'll also get to the place where he sees the dishonor. And all I'm telling you this morning is that we need to start honoring and speaking life to people like we're speaking life and honor to Jesus himself. The other way that we can honor others is with our actions. It says in 1 John 3:18, little children, let us love not in word or in talk, but in deed and in truth. And all I'm going to tell you this morning is that we have to show up in the right way for others. We have to serve well. We have to work with integrity, because excellence is the language of honor. How you show up says a lot. How you show up for God, how you serve honors God. Let me rephrase that. If you serve, that shows honor, because some people ain't never served. You ain't went to an outreach. You haven't served a cup of coffee. There's been nothing. Look, if you've never done that, I just want to give you an opportunity and a chance that after service you can go to Connect Track and get connected. Now, I'm not trying to condemn you. Let me put some love on it. Let me put a little bit of love on it, because it says that love covers a multitude of sins. Love not only covers, but so does honor. And honor is intentional in covering instead of exposing. And if you remember Noah had some boys, and Noah had went through a tragic event in his life, and it says that Noah drank a little bit too much, and he found himself laying there naked and shamed. And it says that his boys came in, and they walked in backwards with a blanket, and they covered their father. And this is a perfect example of honor, because honor does not look at the problem. Honor is more focused on protecting the person. And this is a perfect example of love in action. And the last thing I just want to point out to you is that we can honor others with our attitudes. In Philippians 2:3, it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. And there's no better example of a heart of honor than King David. You see, King David had every opportunity to dishonor King Saul. He had been mistreated, even though he was loyal to him, and he was treated like a criminal on the run. And it says that King David had found himself at a cave. And in the back of this cave, he had his men with him. And King Saul comes in alone, unaware, and he takes a nap. And as he sleeps, David's men try to convince David to take King Saul out, but King David doesn't do that because he honors the king. Instead, he cuts a little hem off his robe. And when he does this, He then tells King Saul later, he lets him live, he doesn't harm him. He tells him later that I could have done harm to you, but I didn't because I chose to honor you. And I believe that God honored David because he honored the king. You see, because God can trust David and how he honored the king, I believe that God entrusted David to become king one day. And all I'm saying is what you honor, you attract. And David knew that he didn't have to bring any harm to Saul. All he had to do was wait for honor to deliver the throne to him. So this morning, I want us to examine our hearts and our motives, because honor isn't just something that's visible, it is something that is totally spiritual. And I'll leave you with this last verse, Romans 12:10. Love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another, showing honor.